right. Hey, you're listening to Movement Monday here on Heart of a Volunteer Veterans Podcast. This episode is the introduction to the host of Movement Monday, Navy veteran, founder of Ride with Dan USA and One Pedal at a Time movement, Daniel Hurd. Lace him up, lean forward, and let's get moving. All right, welcome everyone to Movement Monday, a new episode series here on the podcast, highlighting in-depth conversations with a wide variety of individuals and organizations that are on movements themselves. So folks, as we look at the landscape that exists today, it's easy to think that movements started with us, like the last 50, 100 years, right? But that would be incorrect, primarily due to the fact that movements have defined the outcomes of the human species, shaping the world as we know it. These movements have evolved. Some say it began with migration. Of course, we know of the political movements, but the movements that have defined the human species has always been the movements that enhance the experience of life for others. Movements come in different types: self-discovery of the personal variety, raising awareness to causes, much like Ride with Dan USA, raising awareness to suicide, and raising funds for cures. Now, hey, I'm not the host of Movement Monday. I'm just a producer, and I host a couple other episodes. We have a much better qualified person than myself. So without further ado, from Ride with Dan USA, One Pedal at a Time movement, and 4 veterans chats here on the podcast, please welcome your host of Movement Monday, Navy veteran, suicide survivor, and friend, Dan Hurd. Dan, welcome to the podcast yet again.
Chris, it's always a pleasure to be here, and I'm thankful to be here in a different type of light this time.
Definitely, man. I mean, last time you just, that we were face to face in the studio recording an episode, you were cruising through Stillwater. And, I mean, we can get into that story if you want to.
Yeah.
Where you went and ate and they were like, hey, you need to go to the university. Something like that. Tell that story, man. I like that story.
Yeah, so I don't remember the gentleman's name off the top of my head, but Christy will tell us for sure. But I was having a meal and I started talking to this guy, telling him what I was doing. He's like, man, you got to stop at the Veterans Lounge area and you got to ask for the Chris. Talk to Heart of Volunteer. So he gave me directions how to get there. I get to the lounge area where the veterans hang out, and Christy was there on her little, I don't know what you guys call that there, but she was working and doing her thing, and she reached out to you, and you were literally in, I think, the same building, right?
Same building on the 3rd floor, yeah.
Yeah, so you rushed down real quick to come talk to me and was like, I got to go take a test. I'll be back.
Yeah, we took a quiz, and then maybe we went over to the tree house and got an episode done.
Yeah, and that was the first one of the first 4.
Yeah. Yeah, the last, the 3 after that were all done on the road.
Yes.
Just by phone. Yep. Well, hey man, we've definitely made the studio our home. We spend most of our time in here. We got plenty of lickies and chewies and stuff like that. What do you got over there in your koozie, man? What is that?
Oh man, this is Run. What do I got now? I got Run Wild from Athletic Brewing.
I've had that one, right?
Yeah, this is the IPA that you had.
Yeah, dude, that's kind of mind blowing.
And for everybody that's listening to this that knows who I am, and for those that don't, I'm in 8 years now alcohol free. So this is a non-alcoholic IPA. That's
right. Congratulations, by the way, brother.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Yeah, man, that's some good stuff. And you know that you were saying, man, that they've got like 2 different breweries, and they're like the only ones dedicated to non-alcoholic brew.
Yeah, that's actually 100% true. So they've been around since 2017. They started in Connecticut, and now they have another plant in California.
Man, that's pretty fast for only 3 years.
I know, but what's cool about it is that in the name Athletic Brewing, it's literally something that's beneficial for athletes. The day before an event, you drink this instead of your alcoholic beer. You don't have that lag or that drag that you have from the alcoholic versions. But it's also great for people like me that have decided to cut out alcohol out of their life. And for people that just want to have something alternative for, mixing it up.
Well, the thing is, I was talking about my buddy Adam down there in Florida, Coast Guard guy, and he loves beer. But man, I mean, he is into the taste, right? I mean, everyone likes the effects if that's your thing. But a lot of people, they like the taste. They taste amazing, and that's good taste in beer. It really is, man.
Oh, 100%. And it's not your typical non-alcoholic beers. It's not your, your normals.
Your O'Douls.
It's not your O'Douls or your Busch or anything like that. This company is strictly a non-alcoholic beer company. They're
craft
beer.
Craft
Thank
beer.
you for correcting me on
Yeah.
that. And they were actually the first one in the United States, like you said earlier. So their thing on the side of the can, it says "Brew without compromise."
Yeah, I believe that.
And it's truth. It's the fact that they make this product that's just so full of flavor. If it wasn't that it said non-alcoholic beer on there, I would think I'm drinking an alcoholic beer. So I would be interested in telling your buddy to check out Athletic Brewing, see what his thoughts are.
I will. I'll send him something. Yeah. Hey, Dan. It kind of seems like in the kind of to live in the world where we are right now, Movement Monday. They kind of seem like they're on a movement, aren't they? I mean, they got 2 plants dedicated non-alcoholic brew for people out there. That's kind of a movement going against the grain.
Oh, absolutely. And they're a movement for athletes.
You think you can get them on?
I'm hoping so.
Okay.
I'm hoping so.
Okay. I like the way you think. Well, hey, man. We're going to get into your saga, right? We're going to get into that thing. Here in a few weeks, we're going to get a battle rhythm down. So Movement Monday is just working like clockwork. But let's talk a little bit about you for the listeners that are kind of new. Obviously Movement Monday is the very first episode. So let's just kind of fill people in like where everything started.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I was born in Manchester, New Hampshire, 1989. From there, I lived in New Hampshire for the first 10 years of my life. Did a lot of moving around, a lot of just ups and downs in my life going on then. But then I moved to Massachusetts around 10 years old. From there, I was put in foster care, did that whole thing. Ended up in a permanent foster home at 14 years old until I was 18. From there, at 18, got my own apartment, graduated high school, and then joined the Navy.
Right. How was your time, man, as a seaman in the Navy? How was that?
Well, the seaman side was short-lived because I was only a seaman in boot camp, and then I became a fireman.
Yeah, don't try to church it up, bro. But no, I get that, man. No, I'm just joshing with you. I didn't really put that together when we were talking that there are different ratings and stuff like that. So people do shift. So I get that.
Yeah. But that's the one thing that we all have in common. In boot camp, we are seamen.
Right.
But once you graduate boot camp, you get that destination, that other rating. So I'm thankful that I was a fireman.
Well, I mean, everyone starts a seaman.
Oh yeah.
It's at some point.
The Navy does it true.
Right. Hey, so where were you stationed at, man?
So I was stationed in San Diego, California. Mm-hmm. I was on a ship called the USS Pearl Harbor, LSD 52.
Nice, man. I like that.
We were, best way to describe it is we were a Marine taxi.
Okay.
We were an amphibious ship, so we brought Marines across the way and brought them to the Gulf and wherever they needed to go and unloaded them through LCACs and other floating operations and sent them to the shore. So
how many Navy personnel does it take to run USS Pearl Harbor?
So we had about 600, I think it was, of Navy personnel, and then we had about, I want to say it was like 800 or so Marine and people on board. So we were a pretty good sized ship.
Right. Very cool, man. When I was in the Corps, I never got a chance to go, do a float. I never did. No, I got out before my float rotation came up.
See, you missed out.
Yeah, I know.
You would have just had a floating holiday for like a month in, a month out.
Right. Well, hey Dan, how long have you been on the road, man? When did you jump on the road on your movement?
So I started the movement for Ride with Dan USA on March 5th of 2018 from Plymouth, Massachusetts, and it's been a great journey since.
So, man, you've gone 44 of your 48 states. That 4 more need to be completed. How many miles is that?
Well, so far it's approximately 17,600 miles.
Dude, that's a lot of revolutions, man.
Yeah, it's only like 400 to 500 pedals per mile.
Single, like one pedal at a time, but 400 to 500 to complete a mile.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on the gear.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's nuts when you think of it like that. And yeah, but the thing is, if you think of all that, you'll never get it done. That's why it's still one pedal at a time.
Right. I guess you'd have to get like a different kind of cadence and not like counting the pedals.
Yeah,
that would be tough on your head. That'd probably be tough on my head. Hey, so Dan, let's go back for those that are new to this, to your story, how you got started, how Ride with Dan USA started, and how you got to this point here, staying at LZ Ranger with your own podcast episode on the HOV. So what do you think? Jump back to the beginning?
Yeah, man, let's do it. You know me, I'm an open book.
All right, brother. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you don't know, for those that do know, I attempted suicide 3 times, was planning a 4th. Those suicide attempts were for various reasons. It wasn't for anything in particular. It was from childhood, from military, from financial struggle to daily struggles, to everything in between. It was a little bit of everything. But all of that is what led to my first bicycle ride, which a friend got me on a bicycle. I'm very thankful for it. But it was after my 3rd suicide attempt. He saw that I was still struggling. He saw all this, like, so many times he had tried to get me on a bicycle, and I wouldn't do it. I rode motorcycles, you know what I mean? Like,
did he know that you had attempted?
Yeah, he knew I attempted it. We actually lived together when I attempted my 3rd one.
Okay.
So he knew very close. He was there. He knew me for my 2nd one as well, and so he knew about it. And he was just trying his best to be that friend. Hey man, if you need to talk, like, know that I'm here to listen.
Right.
And I was like, nah, that's cool, man. I'm fine. I'm good. And he didn't know that I was planning my 4th attempt.
Yeah.
But he was like, one day at work, he comes up to me. He's like, hey man, we're going for a bike ride today. I was like, no. He's like, no, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, we're going for a bike ride after work.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he made me go. And I tell people all the time, I'm a human being. I'm a person of my own. If nobody's gonna make me do anything.
Right.
But a lot of that had to deal with this guy that wanted. He's my friend. Mm-hmm. He wanted to spend time with me, and I looked at that as an opportunity to spend time with him.
Right. So how'd you get to the 2nd ride, man? I mean, if the first ride, you had to get on the bike many times to finish 17,600 plus miles. So what got you on the 2nd time?
Well, so the 2nd time was really just because of obligation. To my friend.
To your friend, yeah.
Yeah. So my friend, like I said, it was more of an obligation to him. I felt like before I checked out for the 4th time, that I needed to spend time with this guy to let him know that I appreciate you, even though I'm not going to be here for long.
Right.
And to be honest, I thought maybe being on that bicycle ride, I could find a place to do that deed. And so it actually wasn't until the end of my 3rd ride that things changed.
What was so impactful about the 3rd ride?
Well, so definitely for people that haven't checked out the veteran chat that we've done, I talk about in episode 18, mm-hmm. I think it is. Is that the one, 18?
Yeah, the very first one?
Yeah.
Veterans Chat 18, that's correct.
Okay, so if they want, they can get the whole detailed story on there. But what ultimately happened is we rode 166 miles over a course of a weekend.
Nice.
And during that ride, I was struggling, and I was so focused on the past, but also so focused about the future. I wasn't living in the moment.
Yeah.
And my buddy looks at me and he goes, listen, man, it's one pedal at a time. It's left, right, left, right. And, being in the military, we do a lot of cadence.
Yeah.
So I just started doing cadence for the last portion of that ride. And before I knew it, I was home.
Yeah.
And so the 3rd ride was really the point where it started to make the change in me. Mm-hmm. But it was that 3rd, 4th, 5th, and going into like the those next few rides that were like, man, I'm changing my life. I'm changing everything about me.
Right. When were you hooked, man? When did you know that that this thing had impacted your life?
So the third ride, like I said, was the start of it for sure. But it was the fourth ride that I got, like, I was hooked. I was ready to, like, man, I feel good. I felt good about the third ride. I was, I just did 166 miles. I was a pretty heavy dude at the time. I was, I think, like 240 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wasn't a small dude. And,
No, you weren't.
But I started losing weight after that third ride. I started getting confidence in myself. I felt like I could ride a bike more than, you think, well, man, I can't ride 10 miles.
Yeah.
Never mind that larger number. So when I started doing that, I was just like, done. I got this. And it just kept going.
So, Dan, you're riding all over the place thanks to your buddy, him loaning you a bike.
Sorry, man, not to interrupt, but no, that's actually not how it happened.
Oh, you didn't have a bike to...
No, man, I didn't have a bike at all. So I was using my buddy's bike. That was nice enough to let me use his bike. And it got to a point where I'd be like, hey, man, you want to go for a bike ride today? He'd be like, dude, I got other things I got to get done. So I only got to ride a bike when he was available.
Right.
And it stayed that way for a while. And, I got to a point where I was just getting that itch. I needed to go ride more often, even if it was by myself. And so I ended up getting my own bike.
How long did it take you to get your own bike and gear?
So my first bike was I'd say about 2 months of riding. When we could with him, I ended up getting my own bicycle.
Right.
But that bicycle led me all the way until I left on my journey. But I started mapping out the one I wanted months before I got the one that I had for the journey.
Like watching videos and magazines and stuff like that?
Dude, yeah, I watched videos, looked in magazines. I made a spreadsheet of
you were in it.
Like all the touring bicycles around the world, which ones had better like equipment already on them and the prices and the frames and all these different things. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting my bike about a month before I left on my journey and getting it all ready to go.
Now, when did you actually start, like, Ride with Dan USA, like the origins of that?
So Ride with Dan's origin started for a couple different things. One, it all kind of started because of October 2017 is when I started Ride with Dan USA. But Ride with Dan, in a sense, before the name started before that. And that started when I was going to therapy. I was going to a therapist and we were talking and we were trying to find out the stories that were really impacting my life that I needed to stay like in a mentally good state of mind. Mm-hmm. And I was telling my therapist, I was like, man, the people I served in the military with, I miss them. I love them. I haven't seen them since I got out.
Right.
And he was like, man, it sounds like you should take a trip to go visit some of your veteran friends. And 2 days, I think it was like literally 2 days later, my friend that got me on the bicycle was like, man, when I was your age, I wanted to get on a bicycle and ride across the country. Dude, I tell people it was like light bulbs, but really it was like fireworks, whatever you want to call it. It was just, my mind lit up.
Super excitement.
I was just like, dude, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ride my bicycle to go visit the people I served with.
Right.
So the following week I go to see my therapist again and I'm like, so I got a plan. He goes, all right, what is it? I'm like, I'm going to ride my bike to visit all these veterans that I served with. He goes, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, but man, that is bold.
Yeah, well, it was even more bold. He was more nervous for me because, so unfortunately, my last suicide attempt was largely due to financial struggle.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to do it with no savings too. He's like, oh my God, no. Oh my God. Got nervous.
Yeah.
Thankfully, as I came up with my plan, I share it with him every week. And by the time it was time for me to go, he was like, best of luck, Dan. Good luck.
Good.
So the plan was in place, even though the mission wasn't established at that point.
Right. Well, man, let's go ahead and kind of run through your course, man. Like the states, the path that you've taken. Yeah, man, and let's talk about some of the key points that happened during that. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I think that's great. Let me just start with it.
Well, now here's the other thing. Folks can find the places you've been. They can map your trip.
Yeah, they can actually. So they can either see it at ridewithdanusa.com.
Right.
Or if they want to go to even more direct link, they can do maps.ridewithdanusa.com and it'll bring you up my projected maps, and my actual completed maps.
Okay. That's pretty cool because I've seen you pop your phone up every once in a while when you're checking like where you were and stuff like that. It's got like mile markers, how many miles you traveled to point, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's a lot of awesome stuff and a lot of good information either through the website or through different apps. So it's really, really a lot of information for people to see.
Hell yeah. All right, man. Well, let's start at Plymouth, Massachusetts, old Plymouth Rock, and where the old Pilgrims started. And let's hit it from there, man.
Yeah, man. So, so from Massachusetts, I made my way to Connecticut. I take that back. Let me correct myself. Sorry about that. I went from Massachusetts to Rhode Island to Connecticut. Rhode Island's a small state, so you kind of forget about that when you're from there.
Right.
And then from Connecticut, I went to Vermont, and then to New Hampshire, where I had a really impactful experience.
What was that one, man?
So that's the one that we talked about. Again, I think it was episode 18 about the woman on the bridge.
Right.
And, that one was a really powerful one for people that don't know what I'm talking about. I was riding through the state of New Hampshire. I was crossing a bridge, and about a half mile after I crossed the bridge, I saw a woman walking down the road in the opposite direction of me. And so I just waved to her, say, hello, how you doing? She acknowledged me. So I turned around, went back to her, let her know, hey, I'm bicycling the lower 48 states for suicide awareness. It was literally right before this that I had decided that I'm going to ride for suicide awareness alone, never mind all the other things I had planned. So I gave her my card, said, hey, you know what? Have a blessed day. Yeah. Have a great day. And went on my way, had to get to my destination. And that woman ultimately reached out to me later on and said, hey, I just want to let you know that I was planning on committing suicide that day, jumping off a bridge. And that conversation that we had changed my mind.
Right.
So...
first intervention.
It was my first intervention. It was indirectly an intervention, but it was an intervention.
Yeah. That's good, man. That's, for you coming off of, attempting suicide, a year before, right? A little bit more than a year before, to be able to save somebody or to change their path. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's so powerful.
Very powerful.
And it gave me, it was the starting point of same thing like when I started riding a bike. It wasn't the immediate change, but it was the starting point that I realized that I wasn't alone in my suicide attempts.
Right. Well, let's pick up there at New Hampshire, man. What's next? Yeah.
So from New Hampshire, I went into Maine. And from Maine, I went into New York and made my way through to Ohio. Ohio was a pretty cool state. It's where I found Christ. And then from Ohio, I went to Pennsylvania and then Maryland, which is cool because I rode with a group of people actually, 22 at that. 18 of those were kids and 4 of them were adults, and I rode with them from Pittsburgh to Maryland together for I think it was 5 days. And that organization that was doing it was called the Bicycle Coalition Youth Cycling. They're based out of Philly, so I got to see some of those people again when I got to Philly later on.
Right. I'm privy to information into some of the people that like Alex, right? You don't link up with a lot of people and ride with them on the road. It's not like a thing, is it?
No, not usually. And
but when you do, it's kind of something that's like, yes, there's somebody to camp with, there's somebody to ride with, there's somebody to kind of pace off of and have company.
Yeah, it changes the pace. Even if you have your normal pace, if it's slower or faster, whatever it is, it kind of gives you that change that you need at that moment. And, for me, I haven't had a huge number of people riding with me. So I actually remember every single person I've ridden with.
Very good.
Now, obviously, I don't remember all 22 riders' names and everything.
Yeah.
But, or at least in that group. Mm-hmm. But I remember them, and I remember the experience and the connections I made with them.
Right. That's the Bicycle Coalition Youth Cycling out of Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. So Pennsylvania, Maryland, where are we off to next?
Yeah, so from Maryland, I did West Virginia, and then went up to New Jersey, and then made my way around to Delaware. Mm-hmm. Delaware was an interesting state. Came in one way, went out the same way. There was no detouring on how to get in or out of the state for me. From that, I went to Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina.
So during all this, man, it's, I mean, you've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You know, have you had a hard, like a day that's just like, seems like it's impossible? Has that happened yet? Because, dude, I'm thinking of going through New Jersey traffic, West Virginia mountains, and you know, and maybe not too friendly to bikers. You know what I mean? Like the landscape itself. Have you had a hard day yet that you totally remember?
Oh, absolutely. I've had several hard days, but my hardest day, and that's even hardest. My hardest day, even for the entire journey.
To this point. Right.
Is in Virginia, not West Virginia, Virginia, and that was on a climb that I had to do to get to the top of the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it's called Lover's Leap.
Wow.
And it was just a long, slow, cold, windy, miserable, windy. I think I said that already twice.
Because it was windy.
It was that windy. It was just that long of a day for me. But like I say, it's the hardest day still, even to this point. But I've done bigger climbs. I've done harder climbs. I've done it with bigger weights.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the hardest day because it was the day that prepared me for everything else.
Yeah, you had to have that hard day under your belt to make some harder days easy.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I still tell everybody that's my hardest day. Because when I think about it mentally, it was a hard day, and there was plenty of days that were harder. But I was prepared for it because of Lover's Leap.
Absolutely, man. You know what? I think, like the doctors were saying, man, just to jump ahead a little bit, that you being in shape, being in athletic form, helped you to, so you weren't injured as bad.
Yes.
So it's good that you had that hard day, man, to condition you to hit it ward.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, you went through Colorado and got nuts. But, all right, man. So South Carolina, where we at from there?
So from South Carolina, I went to Georgia. And then from Georgia, I went through Florida all the way to Key West and up the Panhandle.
Wow.
Yeah, I did the whole state, man.
Is that pretty cool?
Dude,
going to Key West on the bridges?
Dude, it was amazing. First of all, it's the only time in December that I've gotten a sunburn in my entire life.
Right.
So that's pretty awesome. It was my second sunburn of my journey, and it was like 2 days after Christmas.
Yeah.
Which was insane to me. But yeah, from there, dude, I went to Alabama, and I really actually had a great time in Alabama, man.
Let's talk about that, because it's kind of like a milestone or
the multiple milestones at that. So Alabama was a state that I planned to do 2 days in, and ended up spending 5 weeks initially there.
Right.
And the reason why I spent 5 weeks there is because I was doing, preparing for a lot of different things. One, I was preparing to start OPAT movement, the one pedal at a time movement. All the forms and everything was going through Mobile, Alabama, and very fortunate the people I was staying with were hugely inspired by that, and so they actually contributed and helped me get it started.
Right.
But they also were involved with other things, other milestones for me, and like I mentioned, I accepted Christ in my life in Ohio. Mm-hmm. I was actually baptized in Alabama with these people I was staying with, and on the same day as being baptized, I did my first speech.
Really?
Yeah, my first one. It was the hardest speech that I've ever done in my life.
Were you sweating?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm in, which I do anyways, but I was even worse than I normally do. I was making eye contact. I was looking at the ground. I was sweating like crazy. Mm-hmm. I was stuttering. It was nuts.
Now, how many speeches or kind of engagements to crowds have you done since you've been out on the road, would you say? Well, not to put you on the spot.
I don't know. I don't keep track of that number like directly, but if I was to guess, I'd say anywhere between 75 and 100.
And we're not talking about like leaned up against your bike on the street corner. We're talking about like in like groups of people. Yeah,
that's groups of people, anywhere
right.
10 or more. Right. I don't count the ones that are on the road, because if you count those engagements, then I've done thousands.
Right. Man. So Alabama kind of jumped everything.
Yeah, that was where
kind of infused some more into the journey.
Yeah, it made the foundation bigger, and it just grew the idea that was already being developed
Right.
into something real. But yeah, after Alabama, man, after spending those 5 weeks with the Carden family, shout out to the Cardens.
Nice.
It was a great time. I went from there to Mississippi, and then from Mississippi, I went to Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, I went up the center of that state, visited a lot of people I met from the military.
Nice.
And went into Arkansas, man. Arkansas was a great state. I was surprised, to be honest, of how awesome it was for me. And I did a lot more speeches there and got a lot more practice. And then from Arkansas, I went into Tennessee and spent some more time with people. Got to meet some really great people in Nashville, some country music singers and producers.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Tennessee, I went into Kentucky. For Kentucky, I went into Indiana, and Indiana to Michigan. And then from Michigan, I went on the Lower Peninsula, stayed there. I went all the way up to Mackinac Island. Came back down, looped around to Illinois, and then Wisconsin, and then Minnesota.
Okay, man. So that you're at like 29. It looks like you're like 29 states. At this point, you've got you talked about the Virginia hardest day, right? What's the farthest you've ridden to this point? Is there like a big mileage that you've hit that's just like kind of like a kind of big?
Yeah, so up to this point in this conversation and in this point of my entire journey, actually, I actually went from Indiana to Michigan. I did 130 miles in one day, which is my biggest ride of my entire cycling community. I mean, my cycling journey and cycling career.
Are you going to? I mean, is that a mark on the wall? Like like 130, like 150's next. What's next?
So that changes every year. So when my first year of riding, I did 124 was my goal mark that I hit. This one was 130. The next one depends on this one number that I do it for. It's a dedication ride that I actually ride this number for, and it's the number of people that commit suicide every day in the United States.
Right.
So unfortunately, this year being 132. I couldn't ride that number for multiple reasons, but we'll talk about that at some point.
Right.
So, I'm fortunate that I was able to get that 130 and get that number solid in there. And when I can share that with people and like, yeah, I rode 130 miles in a day, they're like, what? Like, yeah, that's how many people committed suicide. It really connects and makes them realize like, wow, we need to make changes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, unfortunately, that number is probably going to be a little bit higher after the virus and everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm hoping it won't be too much higher, but we're already thinking it's going to be over 140.
Yeah, it's sad, man. All right, Minnesota, man, where are you at after that? So
I crossed into North Dakota, and I had for a state that a lot of people like to joke around that doesn't exist. And there's nobody that ever lives in North Dakota. I met a lot of great people from North Dakota.
Right.
Matter of fact, I got a board member of my nonprofit that is lives in North Dakota. So from North Dakota, I went to South Dakota to Nebraska, where I had a great time. Got to meet the Missouri River paddlers that were going on the entire Missouri River.
Yeah.
We just happened to be at the same camping spot one night and spent a few days with these guys, and then we ended up leaving. And then somehow for the next course of a whole week, we ended up at the same spot for camping.
So as you're riding along the edge of the river, they're coming down it, and you're just
happened to be
taking
stopping.
a break at the same time. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So we ended up spending some time together, and I got to hang out with those guys, and it's really cool because I got to see one of those guys again on a little later on in the route. And I'm actually really excited to be bringing him on board do an episode.
Very good. Green University.
University. Survival school, survival movement.
Yeah, it's going to be a good episode.
Yeah, I think it will be. But yeah, we went from there, Nebraska. I went to Iowa. From Iowa, I crossed into Missouri, where I learned about the Pony Express.
Right.
Did not know Pony Express started there, and I did not know that it was only 18 months of existence. But yeah, from that I went to Kansas, and then from Kansas I made my way to Oklahoma, where we met.
Absolutely, man.
And, you know, we already talked about the story of how we kind of met. So that works out. And yeah, from that, I left you guys and we talked about it in one of the episodes. You can tell me.
Veterans Chat 23.
23. Yeah, we talked about it in 23. The nudist resort I went to. I had a great time there. And to be honest, I'm hoping when I get healed enough and hopefully things are better, I can go back and visit again.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
But yeah, from Oklahoma, I went to Texas. From Texas, I spent there the entire winter last year and until COVID started.
Yep.
When COVID kind of started settling back down, I made my way into New Mexico.
Right.
And then Colorado. Colorado was a great state for me. I rode my bike down Pikes Peak, which is a 14,000 foot mountain.
Yeah.
I didn't climb it though. So that was a good thing for me. I got a ride up and I rode down it. But yeah, I did 53 miles per hour down that road, I think it is.
Wow.
Which isn't even my fastest speed. But, and then I made my way further north. I got to Fort Collins, Colorado, and I built a camper, dude. I built a trailer.
Yeah, the trailer.
Yeah.
The behemoth.
Oh yeah, dude. And then, so I built that. It was for multiple reasons. They were talking about the worry of COVID coming up again, amping back up. So I didn't want to be stuck in the middle of nowhere without my own shelter. And I was kind of getting it on myself because, you know, I wasn't doing speeches because of COVID.
Right.
And so I felt like I wasn't doing my part. People weren't talking to me. People were afraid to take my business card. Mm-hmm. People weren't having conversations like, hey, let's talk about suicide awareness. So I just felt so useless when I felt like I needed to be more useful because of how much stress people were going through. And so it was kind of putting a lot of stress on myself and a lot of, not per se depression, but the early stages of depression.
Right.
And so I was fortunate to be at a place where I was helping somebody else that was building a camper. Mm-hmm. And just building his really got my wheels turning about like, maybe I could do this. I ended up getting a job for 10 days. I worked 120 hours to make the money I needed to build this camper. I built this camper in 9 days in 120 hours.
Okay.
So I put a lot of work into it in a short period of time, and it was amazing. It made my bike a lot heavier, but it was a lot easier on me in a sense as well, if that makes any sense.
Well, I know you were saying, man, you could carry fresh fruit, vegetables. I mean, you could sleep comfortably. The weather didn't affect you, which is always good. And then, like you said, man, you got a chance to advertise on it. You were carrying a billboard too.
That's exactly it.
Engaging people that way, which is amazing.
Yeah, so it gave me those two things. It gave me an opportunity to share my message even at a distance.
Yeah.
Even if I was asleep or in a store and somebody saw it, because it was a pretty interesting like setup. Like even if you didn't read what was on it and you're like, man, I got to check this thing out. What is this?
Right.
And then when you walk up to it, then you start reading the things. You figure it out.
Then you open the door and it's
and
engage
then,
them.
Yeah, and then I engage them from inside my camper while they're 6 feet away.
Right.
So, you know, it was really awesome to have that ability to share and to connect. So
yeah. Where'd you head after Colorado, man?
So from Colorado, I went to Wyoming and will hopefully never have to go east to west again on a bicycle. Hopefully not. I'll ride again west to east, but the wind's just too hard up there. Great people though. From there, I went to Montana, and then from Montana to Idaho, and then from Idaho to Utah. Mm-hmm. Utah, I had a great time in. I stopped in Moab.
Right.
And,
nice.
To be honest, some of the best guys, day or night, that I've ever seen has been in Utah, in the entire country so far. But Utah in Moab was great. I did something I've never done before. I rode a mountain bike. Okay. On a mountain bike trail.
Like a real, like full suspension mountain bike.
Yeah, like legit full suspension. I was fortunate that OPAT rented me and Alex, the guy that we were traveling together with, rented us mountain bikes to be able to go have that experience and to talk to mountain bikers about suicide awareness.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, from Utah, man, you moved into Arizona. Yeah. State 44. Let's talk about the accident there in Arizona and kind of where we are kind of right now.
Yeah, definitely. So the accident, I was in Arizona for less than a day. Started my day like any other day, and unfortunately, I got rear-ended some point of the day. I don't remember the accident or much before the accident, and I don't remember anything up until I was getting med flighted out of there.
Right.
So, for me, it was a blackout even to this day. I'm thankful that I was med flighted to Flagstaff, Arizona, where I was taken care of really well by the medical staff at Flagstaff Medical Center, FMC.
Right.
And also, something that I want to announce is it's the best food I've ever had at a hospital.
Right.
Yeah, it was like room service status. It was great. Never had that before. But yeah, no, it was a challenge. I went from grinding every single day to being stuck in a bed and kind of figuring out how to rewalk and just do things differently. But the thing that I tried to keep in my mind was don't stop moving, keep that movement, keep that momentum going as best as I could, obviously.
Right. Well, I know at the beginning, man, the first day after you were doing pretty good. And the second day, I think in the third, it just kind of, a wave kind of came over you that this was kind of happened. But man, you bounced back out of that. And I really, there's only been a handful of times where you've been like frustrated, but other than that, you've been on top of it, man, on top of your game, getting better.
Yeah. And, I'm still a human being. I try to have that positive attitude as much as I can, but I still dealt with frustration. I still dealt with an anger, sadness, the disbelief that I was alive. Why everything that comes to everybody's mind at an event like that.
Right.
And it was definitely something that was empowering me to get to this next chapter. I'm thankful that I wasn't injured more. I'm thankful that it wasn't worse, even though it could have been.
Yeah.
And I'm just taking it one day at a time. Usually I tell everybody it's one pedal at a time. Now it's one step at a time. And now even more is going to be one podcast at a time.
One episode at a time. That's right, man. Well, hey, Dan, you know what? Man, the impact that cycling, add in writing, writing for awareness, to suicide and the many, many lives that you've changed. How many interventions have you done?
I've done 80 so far.
80 interventions, man. That's amazing, brother. That's amazing, man. God bless you. I'm telling you, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And to be honest, I'm honored. I'm honored to be able to have those opportunities to help other people, but I'm even more blessed to still be alive to be able to give those. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, man, I think, with the podcast, you've got an opportunity to reach, to change more lives, not just 80. I think your number is going to get absolutely huge. And I'm glad you're getting an opportunity to do that, man. I'm glad you're here, staying here at the at LZ Ranger, and man, I'm glad you're still alive, brother. I'm glad that trailer. I'm glad you built that thing. I feel confident that thing probably saved you.
100%. I agree with that.
All right, Dan. Hey, man, I'm going to turn Movement Monday over to you, brother. Hey, tell your audience, whatever you want to, and close this thing out. Once again, it's great to have you here, man. I am humbled, man, that this has all worked out in such a splendid fashion, man. It's all yours, okay?
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate everything. For a place to heal and to continue movement. Hey, everybody. This is your host, Daniel Hurd. We continue the movement on a different path, a path best for this season. We will share stories of others' movements and provide that Monday motivation many seek. Stay tuned for more episodes of Movement Monday here on Heart of a Volunteer Veterans Podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Next episode, we're going to talk about some of my future guests and talk about the format and structure of Movement Monday. So stick around for episode 2 next Monday, and we'll catch you then.
Copyright Heart of a Volunteer 2020.